Good evening. I've come off the subs bench. Denise has been taken off the field, so I'm delighted to have the privilege of proclaiming the word to you tonight. Thank you for that invitation. Let's just hold a moment. They were two amazing scripture passages. Let's just hold some silence and I'll lead us in a prayer as we seek then to lean into what God might want to say to us. Speak, O Lord, as we come to you, to receive the food of your holy word. Take your truth, plant it deep in us, shape and fashion us in your likeness, that the light of everyone needs to know what story are they being invited into. And then he said, the question for any church that seeks to connect into the life of its community is this. Is our story big enough? I'll just move on to the next slide because I've kind of missed it. You're going to miss it anyway because it's not going to advance. Can we just flick the next slide on? Thank you very much. We'll do it in the analogue way. Thank you. Everyone needs to know what story they're being invited into. And then he said, the question that any church that seeks to connect with its surrounding community has to ask itself is this. Is our story as church big enough that everyone can be part of it? And is it beautiful enough that everyone wants to be a part of it? And I want to ask us tonight, is our understanding of God's story big enough that we know we are fully part of it? And is it beautiful enough that you know you belong in it? Because when I think about Luke's account of Jesus' first recorded sermon, he's done some things in Capernaum and here he is in Nazareth, his hometown. He grew up here. Homeboy comes back home and he's in the synagogue, the church, and he's given a scroll and he reads something and, within a minute, he's gone from hero to zero. People are listening 1 minute and then they're just about to throw him off a cliff. One, about at a time of long and intense famine, the only action recorded in Scripture by the prophet Elijah is to go to a widow in another country, not in Israel. And that story in 1 Kings 17 is very poignant because when you read it, you hear that Elijah comes into this town of Zarephath and all he finds in this town that's effectively been a ghost town because of the death in the famine, this widow is alone collecting sticks because she's about to go home to her young son, light a fire and cook the last little bit of grain in the last few drops of oil that they may have something to eat and then they will die. And under Elijah's ministrations, the amazing thing in this story is that the grain and the oil never runs out. She has everything she needs to survive for as long as the famine continues. It's a miraculous replenishment, if you like. And even when her little boy does die, which he does, Elijah raises him to life. That's one story. And then the story to it and find what God has always wanted you to become. So the question for me that comes out of this that I'd invite us to reflect on is, what story is God writing and what story does God want us to write? What story is God writing and what story does God want us to write? We will see some of this as Luke's gospel unfolds, where Jesus time and again will blow apart people's narrow prisons in which they have placed their God. And Jesus will want people to see there is a bigger story and a more beautiful story which doesn't say no to you, but it doesn't only say yes to you. But I think there's no better answer to that question. What is God's story writing, and what does God want us to write, than what we heard in this crowning passage in Paul's letter, first letter to the church in Corinth. This beautiful part we've now got in chapter 13, this beautiful passage about love. I reckon most of us would have heard that at weddings. But don't be fooled. This is not just about romantic love. It's about the gritty, humbling narratives. And in some cases, these narratives, these stories of what life is about and what community is about and how we should live together, are supported by an appeal to the Bible, and even tacitly or explicitly supported by Christian leaders. Where will people find the Jesus narrative of inclusion and friendship, compassion and generosity and hope? Let me finish back at the Wayside Chapel. Last week, its current lead minister, John Owen, wrote to Wayside supporters in his weekly email and included this comment. Right now, our world seems extreme, uncomfortable, messy. It is tempting to take a snapshot of the world now and call it the whole movie. But it isn't. Deep down, we know it isn't. At Wayside, he said, we don't take a snapshot of a person's life and pretend that is the whole movie. It is a point in time which had a story before, and it has a story after. And that is the intersection where Wayside Chapel wants to sit. The intersection between life as it is now and the story that may follow. And he says this, hope is a protest. It's a refusal to relinquish our capacity to act and make a difference. The world would like us to hold that not only big and beautiful, but it cost God everything to give it, that we might then join the nature of God in living it. When you have communion tonight, know that you're entering this glorious big story.